a bigger boat. But it's great to have this room full this morning. My name is Wendy Gramson. I'm President and CEO of the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce, and I am pleased to announce that due to the tireless efforts of the elected officials, I think most of them are gathered over here to the left of me, as well as members of their staff, that an agreement has been reached to create the Toledo Area Water Authority, or TAWA. Nearly a year ago, the Chamber made an offer to identify and fund an independent facilitator with experience in the water industry to assist in the development of a regionally governed water system. This past year is the culmination of almost 20 years of discussions between the City of Toledo and many of the suburban communities on the best way to provide safe, reliable drinking water to businesses and residents in the region in a cost-effective manner. The Chamber is pleased to have led a coalition of business organizations to support the development of an authority that will benefit the region's businesses and residents for generations to come. I would like to recognize TMACOG for their early work in the early parts of this project. Really served as a catalyst for getting us here today, and we appreciate that. TAWA will be an independent authority with the purpose of providing drinking water to more than 500,000 businesses and residents, with emphasis on safety, reliability, rate predictability. Just as importantly, I think it will also be a roadmap to show what's necessary and what can happen when we collaborate. And who knows what other subject matter we might apply this recipe to and continue to move our region forward. The recommendation that is about to be signed, there's only one pen, but we've checked it out and we know that it works, to form TAWA is the first of many steps that will need to be completed over the next 12 to 18 months. As with most things, the beginning, or the end rather, is really just the beginning. The Chamber remains committed to working with these communities and the new authority. Again, it will be an example of what can be achieved when we work together in the best interest of the region. It's now my pleasure to introduce Eric Rothstein of Gallardi Rothstein Group. Eric brings more than 30 years of experience in the water industry with expertise in rate setting and regional optimization. He will explain further the process and the work that was undertaken to reach this agreement. Eric?
Morning. I'm honored to be here today to mark the culmination of months of effort by a group of enlightened regional leaders. I'd like to thank the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce both for their leadership in advancing the discussions on regional water and their confidence in asking me to help facilitate the decision process. It's been a special process, one that I think serves as a model for the water industry that remains unduly and inefficiently fractured, and for this region. It has been a process that has called upon regional leaders to lead, upon elected officials to look beyond the terms of their offices to the long-term interests of the region, upon water utility leaders to embrace financial transparency, equitable rate setting, and collaborative governance. It's been an exhaustive and exhausting process. The regional leaders involved have held a dozen meetings over 7 months, typically lasting between 2.5 and 3 hours to develop the blueprint for regional water service. This has been an extraordinary time commitment for elected officials. I can attest they worked really, really hard on behalf of their constituents. The regional leaders have addressed a number of very, very important issues. They've looked at establishing an MOU that calls for assuring water safety and reliability with development of a redundant water supply. They are honoring the relations with organized labor and the need to have their water system be an employer of choice in the region to attract, develop, and retain staff charged with protection of public health through water service. They have recognized the need to advance low-income water affordability and environmental injustice issues presented by lead services. Perhaps most notably, the regional leaders have come to the table over these past months and here today have chosen to break from the past. They have chosen collaboration over urban-suburban rivalry and conflict. In so doing and creating the Toledo Area Water Authority, the Toledo region can demonstrate national leadership in the area of vital to all communities' economic, social, and environmental well-being and prosperity. The water industry is not only challenged by deferred investment and emerging water quality concerns, but by inefficiency of provincialism and fractured governance. Creation of the Toledo Area Water Authority, not by court order, but through regional collaboration, can illustrate how communities across the region can come together in common purpose. In facilitating this process, really a true highlight in my now over 30-year career in the water industry, what has been most striking has been the courage of these regional leaders to set aside past grievance and acrimony. To quote Cornel West, courage is the enabling virtue. And there is little more courageous for a politician than to refrain from casting aspersions, to share credit, and to embrace compromise. After a searing experience working on the Flint water crisis that challenged my faith in public officials, I'd like to thank again the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity and their leadership. I have been privileged to see that in the Toledo region, water utilities are being inspired by better angels. And with that, I'm not sure.
Thank you, Eric. I have to tell you that Eric has become like one of the family at the chamber, so we're used to seeing him around. He shares Brian's office. Maybe we can do something about that moving forward, but they've definitely been joined at the hip. I now would like to invite our elected officials, our leaders, in making this possible. And we will start with Mayor Wade Kepsikevich from the City of Toledo.
This is my kind of news conference. I don't know if Eric realizes this or not, but he just quoted from Othello, the Better Angels reference. So I feel right at home all of a sudden. I first want to recognize some, I mean, this is a room full of very important people, but some representatives from the City of Toledo who are here, including 2 members of our City Council, Peter Uvagi and Nick Komives. Nick is the chairman of the City Council committee that is going to consider this issue, and in fact is going to hold the first public hearing even this afternoon. We should also recognize Lindsay Webb, our county treasurer, who was for about a year or so City Council's representative to this process, and I know has a great passion for it. And there are a number of city officials. I see our law director, Dale Empsch, Ed Moore, and just Abby Arnold, one of our deputy chiefs of staff, and I know I'm going to forget some people here. But this is a room. This is a room where the City of Toledo is represented. And I am aware that it has been Toledo's role in this discussion that sometimes has been the stumbling block. It is the case that there may be, there are some people within the corridors of power within the City of Toledo who would prefer that the status quo be maintained, and I understand that. I just believe that that is no longer an option. I don't think, in fact I know, that that is not an option that we have available to us anymore. The world has changed, and in order to protect the best interests of the citizens of Toledo, I believe we need to move forward with the regional system. I think to do otherwise would put the citizens of Toledo at great risk of facing water rates that are triple what they are today. We always talk about regional cooperation in this town. We always talk about the desire for regionalism, but we never seem to do it. We always seem to fall short. Here's our chance to put our money where our mouth is and to truly embrace a regional solution to an issue that has been bedeviling us for 30 or 40 years. I'm excited to be a part of this, but I also recognize this is the very first, I shouldn't say it's the first step, but we are very early in the process. I think, to paraphrase Churchill, we are not at the beginning of the end, but we're probably at the end of the beginning. I think today signals that we are at the end of the beginning of this process. I look forward to putting my name on the piece of paper here in a moment. But after this happens, our city council, as it should, is going to dig into this and hold hearings, and it will be cussed and discussed for a number of weeks. And that's good and healthy, and that's how it should be in a democracy. And then we're going to move forward and move forward and move forward. There's a lot of issues that are important here. I think some of them have been worked out. Some might still need to be. But I am comfortable enough saying that if we do not do this, the city of Toledo will suffer, and the citizens of Toledo will suffer under the weight of water rates potentially 3 times higher than they are right now. I am someone who solicits opinion from a number of different people, not just those with whom I agree, but those with whom I disagree. And I have talked to a number of people in the last week or so whose initial reaction to this conversation was to think that it was bad. It was bad for Toledo, we shouldn't do it. I sought them out. In every case, with the benefit of a grown-up, mature conversation, I believe each one of those former detractors have been moved into a position of at least tentative support. And that's because I think that old biases and old assumptions that they may have been working with aren't the case anymore. And I think the more people learn about this, the more they understand what's really in this, the more we are going to reach the regional cooperation that we all know we need. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy so many officials from the city of Toledo are here. And let's continue our work because we have a lot of it ahead of us. Thank you.
Next speaker from Mayor Kreislau from the city of Sylvania.
This is a big accomplishment for our region. Water has the potential of being a great asset to build business, attract it to Northwest Ohio, and also provide a safe, redundant water source for our residents. We took a black eye on that 3.5 years ago, and since then we've been working diligently to find a way to provide redundancy and safety in our water system, and that means opening valves and building pipelines that connect systems together. And that's what a lot of this study is. Yes, it's to equalize rates, but it's also to provide the reliability that our industry and our residents need. And I envision a system that will tie together Toledo's current wonderful Collins Park water plant with Oregon system, with Bowling Green system, with the city of Monroe, and also going north possibly to the city of Detroit. So we have a truly regional water system that will never shut down and never have a problem in the future like we experienced a few years ago. I'd like to thank my fellow leaders that are in the room. You've put in more time. You've been champions on this subject. And it has taken a lot of hours and a lot of reflection and a lot of finding middle ground. And I'd like to remember 2 of them. We change personnel as we go ahead. 2 of them didn't get reelected to office. Those would be former Perrysburg Mayor Mike Olmsted and former Toledo Mayor Paula Hicks Hudson, who were at the table and working hard all along as well. They all deserve credit, and today is the day, as Mayor Kopsakavich said, is the beginning of the end. Or the end of the beginning, and now we're going to move on to the beginning of the end in the next step. There's a lot of work to do. This memorandum of understanding sets up a vision, sets up general directions in where we should go. Hopefully all of us will sign it today, and it is a great step for our region. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for
Next, Commissioner Pete Gerken from Lucas County.
Good morning. I would say this is a historic day, but I would also use somebody else's line I heard rightly. This is a watershed day. For many of us that have been at this for decades, this is literally a tale of 2 decades. In 1998, in June, we stood at the Collin Park water plant. Mayor Stow and others were there, and we came very close to having an agreement in June of 1998 on a regional water system. It failed. It failed that day for a lot of reasons. And it's taken us almost 20 years to reset that failure into the victory and success that we have today. It is astounding to me that we have finally come with the great leadership in the region with all the elected officials. Let me call out especially my colleagues, Tina Skeldon-Wozniak, who's been a great leader on water quality, and Carol Contrada, who, without whose work this foundation wouldn't be here today. Carol, you led the legal subcommittee, and this is a legal issue. And everybody will recognize that Carol stepped into that and did the work behind the curtain on the legal side to get us where we're at today. Where are we at today? We have taken the step that we've needed to take for a long time. We're about to depoliticize water. We're taking the water out of the political hands, the whims of mayors, councilmen, and commissioners for the good of the citizens, and going to put it into the professional hands of people that are, whose sole job is to operate a water system for the good of everyone, not just one constituency. This is letting go of a system that didn't work. This is embracing a system that necessarily will work for everybody. Everybody's on the end of the beginning of the end. I will say, if we do not sign this document today, which we will, we are at the beginning of the end of water as we know it in Northwest Ohio. If we had not done this, rates would skyrocket for everyone. We would be seen to the outside world as a fractionalized community. We have chosen a different path, the leaders that have been at this table, to put down the weapon of water and make it a resource for everybody to embrace and share together. I don't quote people a lot. Let me give you 3 quick comments. There's a great Bob Dylan song out there that I like. It's called Slow Train Running. This has been a slow train running, but it's at the station because everybody got it here to do it. And then my mom, she also told me 2 things. She said, you know, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And she also said, change is good, you go first. Guess what? We're all going first today. That's why today's a success.
Mayor Carr from the City of Maumee.
If I had been asked a year ago if I thought that we'd all be in this room today signing a memorandum of understanding, my answer would have been no. The long history of animosity and distrust of the suburbs with the city of Toledo over water was a major hurdle we had to overcome. Fortunately, the leaders understood that the past is only something to learn from, and that we had a responsibility to our communities today and for the future of not only our own respective communities, but for Northwest Ohio. It's a much bigger picture we had to address. Our meetings were often, and they were open, they were frank, and sometimes they were heated. Each of the representatives were strong advocates for their respective interests. The agreement that we have today will go back to our respective communities, and I can tell you that every community can find issues in this that they don't particularly like. And the reason for that is it's a fair agreement. And that's what we had to have to move forward, was a fair agreement. The future of Northwest Ohio is going to be much better because we all put aside the past and look forward to the future. And I look forward to going on. I don't quote such luminary people. I will quote Mr. Beasley. At our last meeting when I said that, you know, if they don't think that Maumee or Toledo, Maumee or Perrysburg could leave and go to a different water provider, we can. And Mr. Beasley said it would probably be a very popular decision in your community, wouldn't it? And I told our council last night, our responsibility is not to do what is popular. Our responsibility is to do what is right. And that's what we're going to do. Thank you.
Mayor David Thompson from Monroe County.
Dave, I'm really proud to be here today, folks. For me, this is historic. By the way, I'm your neighbor to the north, okay? We heard a lot about Northwest Ohio, but there's also Southeast Michigan, and that's Monroe County and South County Water, who I represent. And, you know, we've been struggling for a long time with the way things have been going with the rates, water quality, safety and reliability, the things that my colleagues have said. And we were eager to sit down and discuss this, and we did, vigorously. And I've got to be honest with you, I've enjoyed the process. I've enjoyed being able to engage with all of these wonderful people, very knowledgeable. We've learned a lot. And you know, when you start thinking about a program for lead line replacement for the safety of the residents and low-income help and a long-term economic viability, these issues are huge. This is what we're elected to solve, and we're actually getting something done, which is something you don't always hear in government. I want to thank Team Akag for getting this process started. I want to thank those that participated in this process. In particular, I'd like to call out Lindsay Webb, Mayor Kepsikevich, Mayor Stow, and Commissioner Gerken. Your leadership at the table has been inspiring. I'd also like to thank the Toledo Chamber of Commerce. Without them, this just would not be possible. They brought in the guy to get this done, Eric Rothstein, and what an education it's been, and all the experience he has coming from him. So I'm proud and pleased to be here. This is great both for my residents and for the economic growth of the Toledo region, which includes Southeast Michigan. And you know, I'm excited. Today's the beginning, and I'll quote, once you start down this path, forever will it control your destiny. So, to a positive. So, anyway, and by the way, I like the Jaws reference, 1975. I'm a bit of a movie buff myself. So, anyway, thanks for being here, folks. Thanks for all the leadership and the hard work, and we look forward to what this is going to mean for our region. Thank you.
Next up, newly elected Tom Meckin from Perrysburg.
Well, I've been at this a month, so I'd like to first thank everybody who laid the groundwork for how this got here. A lot of staff from all the different organizations spent a lot of time, a lot of effort reviewing information, doing math calculations, and communicating. And earlier speaker talked about I was opening valves. I think it's not just opening valves for water, but real opportunity for the entire region to cooperate on various issues that require regional cooperation for business growth, community growth, and to help the residents of all our communities work together as leaders, helping them work together to solve a variety of issues that are regional, just like water. So I thank all of those who have worked ahead of us, ahead of me, to put this in place. Perrysburg, like a lot of the other suburbs, had concerns. Those concerns were addressed, and there were a lot of discussions. It's a good first step. We think this is a real opportunity that we can start the process of being at the table and being part of the choices that are going to be made, which was very important to Perrysburg. So we're glad that's in the document, and we look forward to going back to council and discussing the issues that are going to make sure that this goes forward and really provides an opportunity for everyone in the region. So thank you.
I'll call up Mr. Zayed Musalam from Fulton County. Did I pronounce that right?
Good morning, everybody. Definitely, this is a huge accomplishment for the region, and it's a positive step for future cooperation with the region and the goal. It's a common goal that we had so far, which is a success of the region. I'd like to thank everybody who participated in the process itself through version 13 of the MOU. It definitely was very informative and a very successful discussion that we had. Also, I'd like to thank Chamber of Commerce for facilitating a successful process that helps us all understand and cooperate throughout the whole process. And also thank for Team Akag for starting the whole process to begin with about maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago. But thanks for everybody, and we'll look forward to continue work on this progress. Thanks.
Mayor Don Atkinson from Village of White House.
Thank you.
Right there.
Good morning. The nice thing about going last is everything has already been said eloquently enough that it doesn't need to be repeated by me. So I would just simply like to say thank you to all of those entities that have already been thanked. I honestly and truly believe this is a historic moment in the history of Northwest Ohio, not only for the constituents that who are elected to serve, but it'll be a great economic driver for the entire region. So thank you, and thank you for having me today.
And last but not least, Jerry Greiner from Northwestern Water and Sewer District.
Thank you. On behalf of the Northwestern Water and Sewer District, we represent a number of parties in Wood County, and those contracts go back into the early 1960s. So for the great city of Rossford, Perrysburg Township, there were some of the original entities that had a relationship with the city of Toledo, and Wood County's been able to maintain that. Again, I'll thank all the participants, the Toledo Chamber that made this possible. Never would happen probably without them to do that. But the devil's in the details now. So the hard work really needs to begin. Sorting out the rates, the financing, capital improvements, the personnel. Those are the issues that really will test us to bring this together and pull it off if it's gonna happen in this next year. So thanks for the time.
Thanks, Jerry.
Before we facilitate the signing, I would just like to thank Brian Dickin from the Chamber. He's the very humble Brian Dickin. Of course, with the help of all of our staff and his staff in particular, but he did this, and I didn't let up on him on anything else that he needed to do, so he's been doing this alongside everything else, and I do hope I get him back soon, but probably not for another 18 months, and that's okay, because this is very, very important work. So I think at this point, we're going to sign, so I don't